this is our roadshow to GDC. We will be hosting 3 more webinars after this one. So we encourage everybody to follow us as we get excited for the big event come March. All right. So congrats on launching Greedy Goblins. As many of you know on the call, Luminary just went live with Greedy Goblins about a week ago. So Amir, we would love to hear kind of your initial thoughts on the first week of launch.
Sure. So actually we launched in the Philippines, Australia, and New Zealand on December 15th, which oddly enough was my birthday. So
happy belated birthday.
It was a cool thing to like launch the game at that time. And I'll also say it's somewhat uneventful in the sense, you know, when you push the button to go live, you know, there aren't fireworks that go off or people clamoring outside. So, but it was cool. It was cool seeing the first couple of people come through. And nowadays, I'll say that the launch of a game really depends on what your launch plan, how you're marketing. So there really isn't discovery anymore on the App Store. So you don't just go live and then just have people come in because they really don't know about you. And so you know, really all the people coming into the game we've known about because we spent for the advertising for that. So. I don't know, what was the original question?
Just kind of like how the first week went. Like, did you guys have any aha moments? Kind of like what were the top KPIs that you guys were looking to achieve? Holistically, kind of what was the overall experience? Yeah, so as anyone who probably is setting up their, I hope you're setting up your analytics, and I hope you've done some dry runs of those. You're most likely going to have a funnel set up. So some of our initial KPIs are, you know, do people complete the tutorial? And what's the conversion rate of once they install and create an account to getting all the way through the tutorial? After that, do they complete a first attack? Or, you know, in your game, it might be something else that is indicative that they're moving along in the flow that you want them to for your game. So, and then the other part of our game is editing defenses. So are people editing their defenses? And we learned very soon and very quickly, nobody is doing that. And why? Because our Fatui wasn't fully complete. So we kind of knew some of these things, but then having the data to back it up. So that ended up showing up. And then ultimately, you know, day one retention, you know, the usual stuff comes after. So can you dig into that a little bit more in terms of retention? Like, I know you kind of touched on numbers. Like, can you share with us some hard numbers, and how did those numbers kind of play against your initial expectations? You're asking me to open the kimono? I'm not going to do that. I had to. Come on. So, well, I will give something though. So, I'll say what's interesting with our soft launch. We launched in the Philippines and also New Zealand and Australia, but primarily we were putting our ad spend in the Philippines. So you may ask why. Why? Well, it's because I was told, or I had learned somehow, that the Philippines, players don't spend money there. Okay. So if you start to see some kind of spend, well, that could be a good indicator of that. We covered a lot of that last week when I hosted Saurabh from Glue talking about monetizing free to play. So definitely would love to hear a little bit more about that experience. I know our audience would as well. So anything that you can share with us would be great. Well, so if you do launch in that country, and I wish I actually had some data for why to launch there, and it's anecdotal. I heard it from a few other companies that they launched there. It's great if you have high retention in the Philippines, because I think there are basically a bunch of players that like to play free games and don't spend money. So if you do see any money spend or decent retention, then you're probably tracking well on that. You're doing something right. Yeah. Right. All right. Well, before we get into the nitty gritty of our discussion here, I would love to hear a little bit more about you, about your role at Luminary, how you kind of got into the whole gaming world, what was attractive about it, and what are you looking to do in the next couple months? Sure. So I've been in the game industry, and I'm always wondering, should I be looking at that? We can go back and forth. I won't be offended if you look to our audience, and I'll do the same. So I've been working in the game industry for about 11 years now. I've worked at Unity Technologies, which a lot of people use that technology to make their game. We use that for our game. At Luminary, I wear so many hats, and many of on our team wear so many hats. I do business stuff, accounting stuff, our legal, HR. I mean, a lot of the operations side of things, and then also very much involved in the project steering and project management side of things. And occasionally when I have time, I like to write some code because that's my background, and I water the plants every Monday.
There you go. There you go. So that reminds us, I think we need some plants here at the Helpshift office. No, that's great. And, I'm looking forward to getting to know you and the Luminary team more as we work with their team on Greedy Goblins. So let's talk about Greedy Goblins. Let's talk about the blueprint of a launch. Like, I know you kind of touched on it, but like, let's really dig into kind of like your checklist of going into a launch. Like, what are the things that you immediately had to consider before you kind of hit that go live button?
Well, I think, and I hope this helps the viewers out there that are indie teams. You kind of want to you're probably working on a fixed budget, unless, you're probably, if this is your first game, you're probably working on a fixed budget, or if you already have a game out, you know how much you can spend on your game. So I would say, and what I'm saying, we didn't do completely. So do what I'm saying, not what I'm.
Lessons learned, right from the best.
If we could do it all over again. I mean, we talked about how much, and I don't want to steal questions away, but I think
it's okay. I can always put them down if you cover it.
Yeah, I think one of the questions you might ask is, well, how much do we set aside for user acquisition? And we talked about it a lot, and we kind of had ideas of it, but we didn't actually set aside that budget. So in the end, we dip into some things so here's what I would say to the indie teams. Find out what you want to spend on UA. And we can go into that.
Yes, we definitely will get into that.
But find out what you want to spend on UA. Take that right off the top. And then look at your monthly burn rate and find out, and you have to estimate how long is it going to take to develop the game. Probably take your estimates and use some multiplier. And then after that, really you can chart out you need at least 1 to 2 months for alpha and beta. Okay. You need at least 3 to 6 months of your monthly burn after you release. So I guess once you start with that, then you can work back. So my general answer is work backwards.
Okay.
And then plan out your dates. And knowing that everything's going to change all the time, but you'll be much better off and have a better sense of your milestones if you do that.
Awesome. And I will get into kind of giving a little bit more advice to the younger teams on the call, but I have to ask, what was your marketing budget for Greedy Goblins? And I know that might be a little too aggressive, but I have to ask, and I know our viewers want to know a little bit of ballpark. So as they think about planning their lunch, what were you guys working with? Yeah.
So, I mean, it depends on your company strategy. I would say if you're in the round of raising money, you want to raise quite a lot. And our initial round was done with angel funding. We raised enough, over $1 million, to develop the game. And with our UA budget, it was very small. So we're talking tens of thousands.
Make sure you're writing this down, and we'll have the recording.
But the point is that we also knew that that's a budget for us to do our soft launch. That's a budget to buy some of our initial players. It's not the release the water hose completely and we're running. So where we are at now is a really good stage where we've got some early metrics. We're tweaking things, and when that larger round of investment comes that we're entertaining right now, we know how we want to spend that. So ultimately budgets do get really high and we'll talk about that more, but I think that's enough for now.
Thank you. And I hope you guys all find that valuable. I am going to interrupt quickly to remind everybody that we have our Twitter experts working with us here right now to answer any questions or comments you guys have around the talk that Amir and I are having. Please use the hashtag GDC15 and we'll be sure to cover those for you. All right, so we talked about beta testers. What are some of the things that you considered immediately after establishing beta testers? What were some of the crucial KPIs that you guys looked at?
So and maybe we should get clear on terminology. When you say beta testers, I think of I mean, we have alpha testers.
Okay, alpha
Should we
testers.
take it
Let's
that way?
take it that way. I'm still learning about all the different
No, you're
terminology.
actually correct in saying beta testers. I would say though that's a different stage of. So what we have, I'll just speak to what we have.
Yes, please do.
We have an alpha testing group, and we brought them on pretty early. I think maybe 3 to 4 months out from launch, and worked very closely. These are friends and family, some work colleagues, and we had I think around 30 to 50 on that group. And so, and I forgot the question again.
How did you
interact
with them? And kind of like what were the things you immediately considered after that kind of group tested the game?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, you were also asking about KPIs.
Yes.
So with a small sample of like 30 to 50, you're not going to get a lot of performance indicators. You will see. You should be testing your analytics though.
Okay.
So we have all that ready to go, so that even with our alpha testers, people that know us and are going to probably do a lot more than the average player is, they're going to give more attention to your game, even if it doesn't make sense. We didn't even have a tutorial when we brought our alpha testing group on. So, but we look at all the same metrics you would look at with when you put your game out there in the wild. So we see, do they attack anyone? Are they editing their defenses? The same things I said once we soft launched. So we did that all with the alpha testing group as well. And then, we use Helpshift. We communicate with them because, so what's great is even from early on, testing that we needed to test your platform out, to be honest. So we were asking questions, we got responses back from our alpha testers. It's a great way to like communicate with them. We use it for bug reports, feature requests, things that weren't clear. We could also see whether they upvoted or downvoted, or we put together a quick FAQ for our group. So so that was some of the interactions we had.
Great. And for the people on the call, kind of how long did that process take to kind of integrate Helpshift and build your FAQs?
Trying to think, the developer that did that, because I'll have to answer to him later if I'm wrong. I think initially getting it up and running was probably like one day at most, and we had
Pretty simple.
Yeah, it was really simple. And then after that, learning the system and like building out our facts, that stuff came in time. But yeah, it was easy to get it in.
Good to hear. So I know that we have some kind of younger teams on the call. As we said, like a lot of people that are joining the call are really just trying to understand how to, where to check their boxes when getting ready to launch a game. So do you have any hacks or suggestions, like daily scrum meetings or kind of lean methodology? Like what are the 1 or 2 things that you really can showcase that kind of can help them get to the next level?
Sure. So actually those 2 things are good. The daily scrums would be one of the things we did. Let me think first though. So yeah, I'm just trying to recall
take your time.
What we did. I say one important thing is set goals. Always set goals for your team. It's always good to know where that next rally point is. And with our scrums, we started. We were a bit more freeform at first with our development, and then after we kind of got to our first playable, we then had a long list of things we needed to get in. So with scrums, you pick a few of those things, you target them, and then you come back after 2 weeks. Where are we? Where do we get? So we had daily.
I've been part of those daily scrum meetings. So I know what it's like.
Yeah, you got it. So we had the daily scrum meetings, and they were stand-up meetings in our conference room. We had the whiteboard there. So that worked really well. And then I'll say once we were very close to launch, we switched to a different system that I kind of came up with and revised, and I just call it triage.
Okay.
And it's
Please explain what triage is.
It's having a long list of things that you're not going to get everything done in time for ship. So you constantly prioritize this list, and you keep knocking away, knowing that if you have to ship on a certain day, you're going to ship with whatever's there. Okay. So it's very similar to Scrum in that you're focusing on the most important things, but these were things that we wanted to see get done in a day. Okay. So we switched between.
Very diligent, yes. Get done in a day.
Yeah. Okay. So, and if we didn't, then we broke the task out smaller. So we had 2 days. We alternated between bug fix days and polish days. Okay. And so the whole team would focus on bug fixing one day, and then the next day we'd focus on polish. And there was a prioritized list of things.
Great.
And we would come back the next day and, did we get it done? Did we not?
Do you think that really helped you kind of guide yourself into a launch and making sure that you kind of do have all those boxes checked before you go? Did it help you kind of help your team organize as a whole team to meet those goals?
Most definitely.
Okay.
And I think it's about momentum. So 2-week scrums have their own momentum.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of doing these checkpoints every 2 weeks. When we switch to our triage system, it's daily. So we see the game improving every day, and I can make a build at any point. And we did, and we would send it out to everyone on our group. And seeing that kind of improvement day to day feels good, because you have you're marching towards that day. You got a month left. You need to keep the momentum. So it's really just increasing momentum over time.
And maybe take it down to a little bit of a more personal level. How did you keep your team motivated during this kind of crunch time pre-launch? I know the nerves can get a little heavy and people get a little agitated. So, that's a really important part of this whole process. So how did you kind of keep people smiling and keep people motivated?
Well, I'll say, it is a responsibility of any leader or person who's holding that role to motivate the team. And also, I'd say that comes from the team as well. I'll say directly, though, is not crunching.
Okay.
That is one of the things that I think is why we kept good morale throughout the whole launch.
Mm-hmm.
There was a point where we thought that question came up, are we going to crunch? And we didn't, and I'm happy that we didn't. So
we're happy you didn't either.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to get a little bit into deeper about testing. So testing your game is arguably one of the most important aspects of launching. During qualitative testing, how did you identify which UX and UI features provided the most value for your player?
So I would say with our alpha group, we most of that feedback comes directly, so we get that through our Helpshift, and so what we did do is when we sent out our builds to the alpha group, we asked specifically, what if you can't figure something out, let us know, and if you're thinking of quitting the game, then let us know why.
Right.
And this is just with a group of people we already know. So
why did you think that was so valuable to kind of get that in-game kind of connection with your player? Like getting that 360-degree view is one thing, but being able to communicate in-game with them is a whole nother. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, it's about context. If you're thinking about, let's just put it this way. Is someone going to really want to set the game down, go to their computer, fire, or maybe pull up on their phone an email and have to find the email that you sent out with the send your feedback to this email address, type up the email? No.
Too cumbersome.
Yeah, so it's good right there. Ideally, we'd have a little Helpshift icon or question mark on every UI element, and they could press that, and feature request maybe right there.
Noted.
Yeah.
Noted.
So ultimately it was easy. You're in the game already. You're already thinking about those things. So, hit the question mark and enter, type out, what you would like, what's confusing about the game. So, yeah. And we played the game a lot ourselves. We played the game daily. So we we knew what was wrong with our UI or UX.
Awesome. Yeah, getting your feet wet with your own product is always the best way to go, because it'll be able to allow you to communicate in the best way. So we work with a lot of companies that kind of abort after testing. As you said, maybe they're getting into crunch time, they're not ready, they're maybe a little bit nervous about going for that global launch, and they want to really make sure everything's polished and what have you. So what is the lever that makes a company like Luminary say, all right, we are go for launch?
Well, with a one product company, I think it's interesting because I don't know if you had the chance to ask that at the last week's webinar. I think that would have been a great question.
I did not ask you, Mr. Sarad. No, I did not.
Yeah, because I think he would probably have a lot more to offer in terms of from a larger company how they make those decisions. But I'll speculate for you.
Just give us what you think. From what you guys are doing and what you're thinking about doing as you guys evolve. What are those levers you think?
Well, so I think a big one is patience. So it also depends on whether the company, and I'll take us from our own standpoint. If we were working on a second product and we were releasing it, we would still do our soft launch. We'd look at the KPIs. We'd make a decision of, are we seeing some indicators that if we tweak these things, they're going to get better? And we still haven't answered the big UA question, but I'll say UA is huge and it costs a lot of money. So before you're, if you're talking about spending millions of dollars to bring players into the game, you want to know you're going to get a return on that investment. So I think that's where that decision to kill something comes from, is whether the indicators are there that this is worth putting in more time. And the other part of it is patience. I think it's a matter of whether the company believes they can improve the game. And if they don't really have ideas, and maybe this is what happens in boardrooms, where the game is out, it's not performing too well, and no one really has great ideas on how to improve it, then yeah, it does make sense to kill it, because maybe that was the risk. You're trying something new, you're not seeing a great response, you decide to put your resources elsewhere. Yeah, I
think that's a great answer and great advice. So let's talk about UA. User acquisition, a huge part of this puzzle piece. Kind of what are your thoughts on it? Kind of what were your highest performing acquisition channels? How did you guys think about it going into launch?
Sure. So our primary channel and our only channel right now is Facebook. And I can't quote the correct report, but I'll drop 2 notes if people want to follow up on their own. I think it's either the EEDAR report or it was the recent Flurry report that broke down how players are coming into games. And most of it is still if you get a feature or if your word of mouth is important. And then the first one that was ad spend focus was Facebook. So we went with Facebook. And it's working well. I mean, it's easy to track. It's easy to set up. And so that's our primary channel. And I'm wondering, what was the other question? Was there?
Well, this actually leads me into the next question about community, and social media really provides a community and kind of an online forum of your players to talk to each other and share best practices. So did you guys have kind of an advocacy strategy when, going to Facebook and encouraging your users to kind of be evangelists for your games, or is that something you're maybe going to be thinking about?
Yeah, definitely something we're thinking about. We're looking at integrating services like EveryPlay, which would be video sharing, so recording best runs on the game and sharing. And that's something that might actually happen in the next few weeks, because people like sharing. If they have an awesome run in the game, they want to share it, they'll share it. And
bragging rights, right?
Yeah, of course. So we're looking at that. We've done some stuff with Facebook leading up to the game where we started to build our audience and share some of the share a few teaser videos, some of the art that's coming through the pipeline, and it was fun. We'd see how many people liked it, and a few people commented. So that's kind of
I liked it. So
that's the engagement right now we have, and I know it can be much better. So we're learning in that space, what makes sense, but we know it's
What would you like to see, kind of down the road, maybe in the next month or two? What would you like to see in terms of that sort of kind of advocacy and interaction?
Sure. Well, I mean, in terms of our game, we're very much excited about putting social, like we don't even have friend versus friend attacks. So right now, depending on where you are in the game, you can only attack those other players in that in your range. But we think it'd be fun, like, if you can attack your friends and taunt them, and so there's some of that's going on. We'll be looking at guilds. Guilds are fun to have, like, group together with your friends and maybe go. All these are in the design phases. So yeah, we're excited about a lot of things.
Awesome. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to paint a little picture for you. If you're spending $1 million, how many installs do you expect in 1 week, and what is a good percentage of retained users at the end of that week?
So, well, if you have $1 million and you're spending on UA, my suggestion would be you shouldn't spend all of that at once, of course. You want to basically prove to yourself that your spends are working well for you. So you might start with thousands of dollars first, or maybe even hundreds if you just you just launch your game, and then you'll up it over time as you see the return, or you're watching your KPIs. To answer your question, $1 million right now, I would say would buy you about 300 to 400,000 users. And that's just from what we are seeing on our Facebook CPIs. And
those are some numbers, folks. See, I knew I would get them out of you if I tried hard enough.
Yeah. And then in terms of retention, I mean, what are we talking about? Day 1, day 7?
You're the expert. Maybe let's say day 7.
I won't claim to be the expert.
Okay. Very knowledgeable person.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, we're learning this stuff too. Yeah. So I would say, you know, day 1, once you peak above the 30% mark, that feels pretty good. Day 7, I don't really have enough to say, you know, I would say, like, hopefully you could be around 30, you know. I mean, that, you know, when you've improved things a lot, like anywhere from 30 to 60 on day 1 feels pretty good. And I think day 7, having about 30% of retained 30% would probably feel good as well.
Great. Well, thank you for that. And I know our audience appreciates you sharing those numbers. And I apologize. I didn't mean to say expert. Somebody who's very knowledgeable about this industry.
We're not out to get it yet with Greedy Goblins. There's still a lot of things we're improving. So,
well, we look forward to carrying those with you. So let's talk about push notifications. What are some of the hacks or kind of key points to, you know, get those up without being too intrusive to the player?
Sure. So I'm gonna say that Eric, our CEO, he came from Zynga. He's very much he loves to test stuff. He loves to test out what works. And early on, we don't even have some of the features in our game. I'm hoping none of our game players are watching this. But he wanted to test out whether if he would do push notifications saying someone stole your gold in the game and they used the gold to buy something else in the game. And to actually implement that feature takes a lot of work, because we actually have to track the money spent through our system and see when did you actually spend that money on an obstacle set. But what I like about Eric is Eric said, it doesn't really matter whether, you know, whether it happened or not. We can at least see whether that's an interesting message to people. So
exactly.
So he did a test push, and you know, and you need to track it on the other end. You need to track whether that results in push opens. So you can play. I would say, you know, with your small groups, you know, and this is the part of doing small, like having a small group to test with initially. Try it out. Try it out with a small group of people. See how it does. Try out a lot of different messages. I mean, with any kind of, you know, you do that with any kind of promotion. You see what people respond to, and you do more of that.
So what do you think is kind of the top resonators for your audience? Like, what are you seeing that people want to respond to?
That I don't know, unfortunately.
Okay.
I have to look at our data.
Sorry, that was not on my note card, so he was not prepared for that. So no, so we'll just skip that one. But let's talk about bugs and crashes. I know they're the things that people like to avoid, but in your experience, what is the best way to address them for your players?
So I'll say what the best way is, and I'll be honest and share with the group that we haven't implemented for some difficulties with Parse. So we use Parse on the back end, and they have a crash reporting tool. And I don't even know, we use Mixpanel for our analytics. They may also have crash support. We haven't integrated any of that. Part of the reason why, part of the difficulty is with us using Unity. And not all SDKs support Unity first class, and we're hoping we'll see improvements in that. So to answer your question, we have the generic Apple reports, which I haven't looked at one yet. I will say though, we've done a lot of testing internally and with our alpha group, and we have a good sense that our app is at least solid on the crash front. Not that there are no bugs, but at least there are no show-stopping bugs.
We apologize for the interruption. Somebody's trying to get hold of Helpshift.
No, we've got a caller.
We got a caller. All right.
Just kidding. No, it's not
all right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that insight, and we look forward to hearing more about that maybe in a future webinar. So I want to cover customer service and customer care. That's something that's near and dear to our heart, us at Helpshift, and we want to learn from you kind of like why that. Getting the 360-degree view of your customer and giving your player the best user experience to keep them in game. What's kind of your strategy, and why should companies be thinking about being proactive rather than reactive when it comes to customer care?
Well, first thing, these are the people that, and let's not call them users. These are people that are taking their time to play your game, and they're spending their money. And that money is how all of you who are developing are able to eat and enjoy enjoy vacations. And so I'm just trying to bring it really down and put it in front of people.
That, yeah.
So in that sense, when you think about people that way, then when you think about people that way, well, celebrate them. I think it's awesome that someone is spending money in our game. Yes, like, and you should know who those people are. So, however you set up your systems to do that, and hopefully, and with, like with Helpshift, for instance, if people reach out to us and they're spending the time to communicate with us, let's make them feel special in that interaction. You don't have to promise them that all their feedback will be taken care of, but you can say thank you for taking the time to give us feedback. We're gonna put you can't promise them, but you can say we're gonna put your suggestion on our list of features we'd like to consider. So you can do that, and then there's a lot more you can do too. One of the things we're thinking about, because you guys, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but Helpshift works once people respond to you the first time. Then you have an open channel to talk to people, but it's hard getting maybe them to respond to that first time, so you can have that interaction. So one of the things we're thinking of hacking Helpshift is to send out a message of the day of, hey,
like a
communicate with us.
Yeah,
yes, we want to hear your feedback. So communicate with us and let's start a dialogue. So just, again, keep in mind these are people that are putting their time into your game. Celebrate them, make them feel special, and genuinely look forward to hearing what they have to say about the game.
Yeah, is how we kind of say, put that relationship back into that CRM process and really encourage that one-to-one relationship between your company and the person that's playing your game. Yeah. So thank you so much. So getting just back into the launch, and we kind of covered the full circle and kind of what you guys were thinking, kind of the pain points that you experienced and what you were thinking next. So how do you guys keep the buzz going? Like, you guys have, you had some great press going into the launch, but now you guys time has passed. How do you guys keep that buzz, keep that excitement going to get people continually interested in your game?
So, let me roll back the tape a little bit.
Roll it back a little bit.
So I'd say we just to put it out there for everyone else, we actually haven't spent much effort or on press yet, other than what's covered in like VentureBeat or TechCrunch, and that's more from the company side. So I can't speak to that yet. And, maybe a future guest could answer that question better.
Or I'll bring you back in a couple months and we'll talk then.
So we haven't done a lot of a press push, but what I can say is, and I'm going blank again on the question. It was about how to keep the buzz
up
going.
And keep people excited about the game.
Yeah, sure. So if you have your Facebook page, that's a good thing to. Hopefully, you can connect the Facebook players with the players who are playing your game. Hopefully they're on there. That's a great way to show them what's coming. Another thing we did is on Helpshift, we even put like a fact for what's coming next. So even though just so they know what we're working at, we put another fact about meet the team. So we kind of put a little bit about who we are as people. So we're not just some company, we're a bunch of people who love making games, and here's who we are. So I guess I'm going to shut up here because I actually don't know enough about the marketing side of things yet. Because
you and I can chat, and I can
you could probably teach me a lot of things. But for me, I'd say it's still about the personal, thinking about the person and
user
what they might be
retention, keeping them
interested.
happy. Because if it's kind of one of those things that I think about, like that positive domino effect. If a player has a good experience in your game and they feel nurtured and they feel like they're getting the information that they need within the app and have the ability to communicate with your team, that goes viral. They talk to their friends about it. They share that on social media, not necessarily on the channels that maybe are branded from Luminary per se, but they're getting that word out. And I guarantee that if that person has a positive experience, a friend of theirs or a colleague will also have that positive experience. So it kind of rolls forward. That's what I've seen.
I hadn't considered that outside of the game, the way in which I'm interacting, or our team is interacting with our players, might provide such a great experience that they become your biggest fans just because of who you are as people and how you communicate with them.
Absolutely. Yeah, advocacy is kind of taking the world and social media by storm. So definitely something to think about. And I'm glad I was able to provide some light on that. So I know we're going a little over the time that we allotted, but this is a great conversation and I don't want to cut it off. And I know there's a couple last kind of pieces of the puzzle I want to cover. So let's talk App Store optimization. What were your initial thoughts going into the launch? Did you want to say you wanted to get rated as the top best game? What were your ideas?
So I'll just be very clear what we did. We were aware we needed to do App Store optimization. There were a few good articles on Gama Sutra of people that had figured that out, or at least had steps for what to do around that. And I would suggest I don't have the links, and I can. If you were to search Gama Sutra, you'd find
those. We can tweet them out post event too.
Yeah, I could see if I could find that information. We did, I'll say a few things that are important is in the app, your app title is important. So we had Greedy Goblins, and I think we used the Run of War, and the terms are very specific.
Absolutely.
So Eric, was very specific about wordsmithing everything in the copy on our app page, as well as our app title, as well as our category. So it's about using terms that people are going to search for. And one of the first things you should do is with your game, start typing out on the App Store the first couple letters and see what comes up.
Yep.
Yeah, because this is the only way right now to have discovery in the App Store. Everything else is curated. So unless you're a charter or you have been featured by Apple, you're not getting any discovery. So really, search is the only way right now. And you put a decent amount of effort to get to do at least that first step of optimizing.
I think that's great. Out of the whole talk, I think that's one of the top hacks that Amir has really addressed. So remember that one, and we'll be sure to promote that key point and those kind of lessons learned. So thank you. We will be jumping into Q&A in just a second, but let's talk about feedback. Like we talked about players, people. We talked about people. They played your game. They talk about your game. They evangelize your game. They connect with it. So how do you kind of get the feedback part right? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I haven't really.
Do you ask for it candidly? Do you encourage it? Do you kind of, what's your best practices in terms of hearing from the people that are playing your game?
So I know with Mixpanel, one of the first things that comes up is get a survey out at some point. And I don't know quite the right way to do that. I'm hoping it wouldn't be intrusive to someone. Maybe you would want to provide the survey to someone who has either spent money or has retained is maybe on day 10. So you don't want to blast everyone with that. You want to ask them, just like when we ask people to rate the game at a certain point. You want to do that when it makes sense. So you'd want to ask for feedback. I think surveys would be important. One of the other things too that I think is important to have is have the ability in your game. This was something we got in it was one of the last things we put in before we sent the game out. Have a way to message all your players. So when they come to the app the first time, we have a message of the day. And they'll only see it once, so they don't have to press it every time they come in. But we can change that message daily. And everyone's going to relaunch the app. So I haven't seen a lot of other games do it, and it's just something fun. Like you could even play with it if you just want to say like some cool metric you noticed from the previous day. You can share that with everyone. So, and some people bury that in the news. Like there might be a little red icon, but we put it up front. So I mean, you use that. You don't use that. You don't overuse that. But I think that's one way to like have some communication. That's the whole part. It's hard to get that. It's hard to get that communication flow going. And I think like once you do have Helpshift a connection with players, you can keep the words flowing.
Great, great. I like that. And I think that brings us to kind of the end of our discussion. Thank you, Amir, so much for joining me. I know I learned a lot in today's discussion, and I'm really excited about what you guys are doing, and I look forward to connecting with you in the next couple months and hearing how everything's going. So any last things that I didn't ask you that you want to speak to our audience about? I'm going to give the floor. If you want some note cards, I can give them to you.
Cool. So,
is there any last thoughts or ideas or suggestions or for our audience before we go into our Twitter?
Great. Thank you for giving me that opportunity.
Of course.
I would say the one big learning out of this whole process of launching a game, and I really want this to drive this home for any developers, is you might be thinking that product design is the biggest thing of your success. And what I've learned is that it is important. Your game needs to be fun. It needs to have cool features, and it's ultimately not going to be unless you have a viral hit, and you probably didn't know you had that because it's hard to design viral hits. Really, you need to consider the bigger picture of UA, user acquisition. You're going to need to figure out how. Realizing that you need large budgets to bring players in. It doesn't matter how awesome your game is. If no one knows about it, it can't be discovered. Very difficult. So for all those indie developers, put your business hat on. Think about how you're going to spread the game, and don't get too locked into product design, because all the improvements in the world aren't going to matter if no one knows about the game.
That's a great piece of advice. So thank you, and I hope everybody on the call has found this as valuable as I have. I'm just going to grab my computer for my colleague here and answer some of the questions that have come through on Twitter. Again, hashtag GDC15. This is our roadshow to GDC. We will be hosting 3 more events, hangouts, webinars, whatever you may call it, in the next couple of weeks. So definitely stay tuned for information on how to join. So, all right, Amir. Does Greedy Goblins use ads or any other forms of interrupted game experience to monetize, or is it strictly in-app?
In-app purchases.
In-app purchases?
Yeah, so right now, strictly in-app purchases. I'll say we wouldn't, it's not like we would rule out using advertisements in games. It's just, usually you would do that if you had high retention, low monetization, and you're wondering how to make money, essentially. And my guess is, like, if you look at a Subway Surfers, they have high retention. I don't know what their monetization is. I think it's decent, and they run ads every day. So at some point they figured, how can we take all these players that are not spending with us and still make some money off of them?
Great.
And so the ads, that's where I think those video ads come up.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Here's a kind of funny, more personal question for you, and answer it how you will. How is it working with Eric?
Eric is he's an enigma sometimes to me. You know, he'll come in and he'll have this great new idea, and he gets all excited about it. He'll come into the team and he just, you know, it's like he wants to grab the team and go to the whiteboard and figure it out. And then I'll have to go to Eric. I'll say, Eric, we're in the middle of like trying to fix this bug or something. He's like, oh yeah, I got you. He's like, well, can we talk about this at some point? And I'm like, okay, well, how about you and I go in there and figure this out and talk about it? And, you know, we won't pull the whole team away right now. So very passionate, motivated person. And he's big on intuition. You know, he's a data guy. He's also very big on intuition. So that's what I would say about Eric.
Well, I hope I get to meet him at some point throughout our relationship. And that ties into the last question on Twitter. I'm sorry if we weren't able to get to every question. We will be sure to answer them individually. Can you talk about the culture at Luminary?
We've built our culture over a year and a half. These are guys that took the risk to join me when we were very small, and we're in offices that were down near the ballpark.
Oh.
I think you might know about, well, you guys might know about that. So
maybe a little before my time at Helpshift, but I have heard stories about the offices there.
Yeah, we've done cool stuff together, like go hike Mount Tam on a business day. We got a what was it, the not Uber. It was you could rent the car, Zip Car. So
Okay.
we rented a Zip Car, went up there. We like to play all kinds of weird board games. One of them, if you're a board game geek, Cutthroat is a great one.
I don't know that one.
Yeah. So we have monthly happy hours where
We will take the invite to the next one.
Yeah. So I don't know if that really talks about the team.
Yeah.
I will say our team feels like family, and I won't say it's deliberate. It's just the way we are, and anybody who comes into the family, like, they're gonna feel that. If they come in for an interview, we very much, the whole team interviews, and like we gave one-on-one time for people just to have get to know who this person is outside of all the technical questions you would ask, because that's huge.
Culture is huge, and I think that you can definitely hear that passion in your voice and how you've told me and our audience the story of Greedy Goblins and everything that kind of went into that launch. And I'm really excited to connect with you in the weeks and months ahead, and I'm really excited to see your game take off, and we continue to build our relationship here at Helpshift and Luminary. So thank you so much for joining my hangout today.
Yeah.
Thank you everybody on the call. We hope that you have a wonderful day, and just as a reminder, this was recorded, so
Awesome.
if you missed some of the beginning, or if you have a friend or colleague that would really like to see this talk and learn kind of the experience that Amir just outlined for us, we'll be sure to share that to our social channels and our blog. So thanks everybody, have a wonderful day, and we look forward to seeing you on our next hangout.